Less than 1 second. 0.04 seconds. Can a human body be completely destroyed in such a brief moment? The answer will disturb you. In this video, we're going to examine one of the most horrific industrial accidents in history. And I need to warn you right now, what happened to these men was so deeply disturbing that even experienced medical professionals struggled to comprehend the scene. The events we're about to discuss involve graphic descriptions of human remains and extreme trauma. If you're not comfortable with this subject matter, now would be a good time to leave this video. The morning of November 5, 1983, the North Sea was unusually calm. Approximately 320 kilometers off the coast of Norway, a massive semi-submersible oil platform called the Byford Dolphin floated silently above one of the deepest drilling operations in the region. The platform was operated by an experienced crew, but the true heroes of deep-sea oil extraction were the saturation divers. These were the men who descended hundreds of meters below the surface, working in crushing pressure and near total darkness, attempting to extract the equipment that kept the oil flowing. And that particular morning, 4 divers were underwater in the depths, finishing a routine shift. Their names were Edwin Coward, Roy Lucas, Bjorn Bergersen, and Truls Hellevik. Meanwhile, on the surface, a dive tender named William Crammond was responsible for monitoring the divers and managing the decompression chamber. None of these men had any idea that within the next few seconds, 4 of them would die in an unimaginable way. To understand what happened, you need to know how saturation diving works. When divers work at extreme depths, the pressure is so intense that nitrogen from their breathing gases dissolves into their tissues. If they surface too quickly, this nitrogen forms bubbles in their blood and organs, causing decompression sickness, commonly known as the bends. This condition is agonizing and often fatal. To prevent this, saturation divers live in a pressurized chamber for weeks at a time. They're transported to and from the ocean floor in a diving bell, and when their work is complete, they undergo a slow, controlled decompression process that can take days. This is one of the most dangerous jobs in the world, but these men were highly trained professionals who understood the risks. On November 5th, the 4 divers had just finished their shift and had safely returned to the decompression chamber. The chamber itself was a sealed, pressurized environment designed to simulate the conditions they had been working in, hundreds of meters below the surface. From there, they would begin the gradual decompression process. Dive tender William Crammond was stationed just outside the chamber, monitoring everything. His job was critical. He had to ensure that the chamber remained sealed and that the pressure inside stayed constant. But then, catastrophically, something went wrong. At approximately 4 a.m., Crammond was in the process of moving the diving bell away from the chamber. To do this, he needed to open a clamp that connected the bell to the chamber. But there was a problem. Between the diving bell and the main chamber were 2 doors, one called the trunk door, the other the chamber door. Both doors needed to be securely closed before the clamp could be opened. If even one door was left open, the pressurized air inside the chamber would explosively decompress the moment the clamp was released. And that's exactly what happened. For reasons that remain unclear, the chamber door had been left open. Some reports suggest it was a simple oversight. Others speculate it may have been a mechanical failure or miscommunication. But whatever the reason, when Crammond opened the clamp, the pressurized air inside the chamber, which was at 9 atmospheres, suddenly equalized with the outside air at 1 atmosphere. The decompression occurred in less than 1 second, and the results were absolutely horrifying. The sudden pressure change didn't just injure the men inside, it destroyed them. Truls Hellevik, who was closest to the opening, took the full force of the blast. The explosive decompression tore his body apart so violently that fragments of his remains were found scattered throughout the chamber and even forced through the narrow 60-centimeter opening in the door. When investigators examined the scene, they found that the intense pressure differential had caused his internal organs to rupture and be expelled from his body. His thoracic spine had been severed, and pieces of his body were found more than 10 meters away from where he had been standing. The force was so extreme, it defied comprehension. The other 3 divers inside the chamber, Edwin Coward, Roy Lucas, and Bjorn Bergersen, fared no better. All 3 died instantly from the decompression. Their bodies were found with massive internal injuries. The nitrogen that had been dissolved in their tissues expanded instantaneously, tearing their organs apart from the inside out. Their lungs collapsed, their hearts stopped, and their blood vessels ruptured. It was as if every cell in their bodies had exploded simultaneously. And the most tragic part? They probably didn't even have time to realize what was happening. The entire event was over in a fraction of a second. Dive tender William Crammond was also killed, but his death was different. He had been standing just outside the chamber when the explosive decompression occurred. The blast was so powerful that it threw him backward with tremendous force, causing fatal injuries from the impact. His body was the only victims that remained relatively intact, but he was just as dead as the others. The scene that rescue teams discovered was straight out of a nightmare. The interior of the chamber was coated with blood and tissue. The smell was unbearable, and Truls Hellevik's remains were so scattered and fragmented that it took investigators hours to understand what had happened. One crew member who saw the aftermath later said he could never fully process what he saw that day. It was, without question, one of the most horrific industrial accidents ever recorded. In the wake of the disaster, an investigation was launched to determine what had gone wrong. The inquiry found that the accident had been caused by human error. The chamber door had been left open, and Crammond had opened the clamp without confirming that both doors were closed. However, the investigation also revealed disturbing safety deficiencies. The design of the decompression chamber made it difficult to visually verify whether the doors were properly closed. Additionally, there was no safety mechanism in place to prevent the clamp from being opened while a door was ajar. The platform's operators were heavily criticized, and new safety protocols were implemented industry-wide. But for the families of the 5 men who died that morning, no safety improvements could bring their loved ones back. Edwin Coward was 35 years old. Roy Lucas was 38. Bjorn Bergersen was 29. Truls Hellevik was only 34, and William Crammond was 32. All 5 were experienced professionals who had spent years working in one of the world's most dangerous environments. And in one terrible instant, they were gone. The Byford Dolphin accident remains one of the deadliest diving disasters in history. It's also one of the most studied. The incident provided medical researchers with rare and disturbing data about what happens to the human body during explosive decompression. The findings were published in forensic journals and used to improve safety standards for saturation divers worldwide. But for those who were there that day, the accident was a brutal reminder of just how unforgiving the deep sea can be. The Byford Dolphin platform itself continued operating for years after the accident. It was eventually decommissioned in 2019 and is currently being dismantled. But the memory of what happened on November 5, 1983, will never be forgotten. It stands as a sobering reminder that even in the modern age, with all our technology and training, some jobs remain deadly, and sometimes a single mistake can cost everything. If you made it this far, thank you so much.